Alright, many of you probably don't know about Celine, which is a fashion house from Paris, and they just launched a new fragrance called Rimbaud, which I have in the box here. This is how the fragrances from Celine come. So they launched fragrances back in 2019, which I got to sample in November in the New York City Celine boutique. There's not many boutiques here in this country. There's probably 5 doors that sell the fragrances, and you have to go to an official Celine boutique to sample their fragrances. But I got to sample the initial launch of, I believe, 9 fragrances at the Celine boutique in Manhattan in 2019. And then of course I was very excited for these fragrances. I didn't really get to wear them. I walked out with one of the fragrances, Dior Paris, this one right here. It's still been my favorite of the whole entire collection. And in this video I'm doing a first impressions of their latest fragrance, which is here, called Rimbaud. And then I'm doing a ranking of the fragrances in this collection that I have in my collection. So there's 6 fragrances total. I'm doing a top 5, my first impressions of Rimbaud, all coming right up. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is Sebastian. Yes, today I'm talking about Celine fragrances. Celine is a fashion house that you probably are not aware of. Very, very high-end luxury clothing, and under LVMH, which also owns Dior and Guerlain, Givenchy, Louis Vuitton, of course, Maison Francis Kurkdjian, Acqua di Parma, many other brands, all under this umbrella. So Celine hasn't had fragrances too much. I believe before these 2019 fragrances that came out from the Celine Haute Parfumerie collection, they had a few fragrances here and there, but they haven't really been in the fragrance market. Now, Hedi Slimane, who used to be at Dior, went to work at Celine, and in 2019 they launched their 9 fragrances, and now they have a 10th. If you don't know this house, check them out. I have a video and the first impressions of Dior Paris on the channel from 2019. But I'm going to discuss this new fragrance, Rimbaud. I'm going to give you my honest opinions of what it smells like. I still haven't opened it up. I was waiting to do it on camera, and I'll show you exactly how it comes. These are some of the most sturdiest boxes I have ever seen. They're really, really sturdy, and the fragrances come like this. There's the fragrance right there. There's one sample of the fragrance, and then there's a sample of something else. So basically what they want you to do is smell the fragrance. If you on the sample, don't open the actual fragrance. And if you don't like the smell and how it performs on you, you can send the fragrance back to get full refund on it, I guess. I haven't done that yet, but which is a great idea. So plus I'm doing the top 5 fragrances, but there is 6 total, so I've left one as an honorable mention as a bonus fragrance. Before I get to this fragrance and the other Celine fragrances, if this is your first time tuning into the channel and you still haven't subscribed, please click the subscribe button below and also click the bell so that you'll be notified for future videos and giveaways. Circling back to Hedi Slimane once again, he, I guess, was in charge of Dior men's clothing, and I think he was the person that was responsible for the launch of Dior Homme. I believe that's what I've heard. I could be wrong, but he is now at Celine, and he's behind these fragrances. And it's interesting, there is definitely a lot of Orris and Iris in these fragrances. So if you like irisy fragrances, you might want to look into these fragrances. And here in the USA, as far as Celine is concerned, there's 2 locations in the LA area. You can go to those stores to sample the fragrances. And then there's a location, I believe, in the Las Vegas area. From what I was told, they have the fragrances there as well. And then there's 2 in the Manhattan, New York City area as well. And that's the only places you can sample these fragrances. And you actually have to physically walk into the boutique, these beautiful stores, and ask them to sample the fragrances. So it might be a little tough for you to do that. But of course, if you can find them online somewhere to sample them, get yourself some, you know, samples of these fragrances, because I think they are pretty great smells. There's one criticism I have for these fragrances. They do seem to be close. They're not the most intense experiences. So if you like fragrances that are a little closer to you, the wear's closer, these might be perfect for you. But as far as scents go, there's some great smells. There are a few or three fragrances that are a little stronger, and it seems interesting. The freshies seem a little more wider reaching, more of a projection in comparison to some of the more intense note fragrances that seem a little more subdued and a little closer to the skin. But I haven't smelled Rimbaud yet. I'm gonna go right to it. I'm not going to try the sample, which is somewhere here. I think this is it right here. I can't see with my glasses, but the fragrance is inside. And these are very interestingly packaged, as you can see right there. There's this little ribbon that's around it, and I'll show you in a minute here, in a second or a few seconds. So here it is. The box is open from the cellophane, and in here, right here, the ribbon is kind of glued on, and you just pull this like that, and then it opens up, and there's more glue here on this side, and then it opens up like that, and then this is Rimbaud right there. But before, let me tell you some details of each of these fragrances before I tell you the details of this fragrance. So the entire collection comes in either 100 ml bottles like this or 200 ml bottles. 100 mls go for $240, 200 mls go for $355. They don't mention perfumers for these fragrances, none whatsoever. But from what I've read, Hedi Slimane, who is the creative director at Celine, is heavily involved in the creation of these fragrances. So he's not a perfumer, and I'm sure he's working with perfumers or a perfumer, because something about the collection is very cohesive. They fit, as mentioned, that they have a lot of Orris. There's also a lot of leather used in a lot of these fragrances. Not a lot of leather, it's mostly about the Orris, and so there's a flow. It does flow from one to the other. And according to this particular fragrance, it seems like there's Orris in this as well. There's Orris butter, but Rimbaud features lavender, neroli, Orris butter, wheat accord, musk, and vanilla. So shall we smell it? It's the first time I'm smelling this one. Let's see. And what I'm going to do is, after I smell it and after I do my countdown of the top 5, I'm going to let you know where this would fit in that top 5 collection, and I'll let you know as far as smells go. And of course, I'll have to report back on the performance of this particular fragrance. It's very lavendery, lots of lavender. In fact, upon initial spray, it's interesting. It does smell like a little bit like Caron Paranum de Caron, a little bit of Lavande from Molinard, a little bit of Lavender Extreme from Tom Ford. That lavender up top, as soon as you spray it, is pretty prominent, and that's where I get those reminders. In fact, I would actually even say this might remind you a little bit of Jersey from, or Jersey. How do you say it in French? Because I'm saying it Jersey like New Jersey, but I was actually told that not to say it that way. In French, it's a little different. But either way, it does remind me of Jersey a little bit. And I'm thinking this is getting, it's developing. I've not seen the wheat accord come up in a lavender and vanilla kind of a fragrance experience, so I will see how this develops. But when I'm first smelling this one, it's nothing original because, of course, as I said, it reminds me of those other fragrances. So it's not anything that's like going to be like, oh my God, this is the most amazing, very original smell I've smelled. It's not doing that for me, and it's something that I've smelled before. So that's a little bit of a criticism because I've already got these fragrances. Especially a few days ago, I mentioned some alternatives to Chanel's Jersey, because the price increase from that collection went up to the from the 200 ml bottles, which are it used to be $350 up to $400. But then again, these 200 ml bottles are $355, so they're also pretty pricey. You know, I like this smell. I like lavender a lot. I just absolutely love lavender. I've traveled a lot in the south of France, and a lot of the markets there sell a lot of herbs and things like that. And then the lavender smell comes very, very prominently there. I smell it everywhere. And so it kind of reminds me of that. This one on the strip is not getting very sweet. Like, it doesn't have a lot of sweetness. Is it because of that wheat accord that's kind of like toning down the sweetness of the vanilla? I'm not 100% sure, But I like what I'm smelling. I am actually starting to pick up the kind of that wheat kind of accord that they say. It does have kind of a grassy, granular kind of, you know, the wheat, the smell of the plant kind of an experience here. Not turned into flour, where I guess they do their process to turn it into flour, baking flour. But yeah, I'm digging it. It's just not very original. Whereas when I first sampled Dior Paris, I bought it right there in the New York boutique. I thought it was a great smelling fragrance, and it was not something I had smelled before. This, on the other hand, smells like something I've smelled before, but it's developing into something unique. And I love lavender anyway. So those are my thoughts on Rimbaud. I'll smell it. When I'm smelling it off the strip, though, it seems like it does have a little more substance and a little bit more oomph compared to some of the more subdued experiences from this collection. Let me know if you sampled Rimbaud. I'd like to find out, but I'm digging the smell because I love lavender, and I like the combination of lavender with sweet notes. So anyway, that's Rimbaud. That's how you see the fragrance. I really do think their packaging is quite nice, very sturdy, and these boxes it comes in, if you are looking for boxes to store things in, they're so heavy duty that I think they would make for perfect fragrances to store, you know, not fragrances, what am I saying, perfect boxes to store things in. So right off the bat, I'm going to say this does not make my top 5, the Rimbaud, just because I've already got the smell. I've got it in other places, but maybe later on when I start wearing it, we'll see how it experiences on me. But let's move on to the top 5. So the number 5th fragrance from Celine is Nightclubbing. So Nightclubbing, a lot of you have asked me in the past if it reminds me of Iris Malikan from the house of Maison Crivelli. I think the idea is similar, but to me they don't smell very close. Yes, it might hint at one another, but it's not an identical smell. To me, Iris Malikan reminds me more of Comme des Garçons Copper in comparison to Nightclubbing from Celine. But Nightclubbing, on the other hand, is lots of galbanum, white orris butter, patchouli, tree moss, vanilla, musk. So it's basically a very powdery vanillic experience. That orris butter comes in a lot. And as I was saying earlier, Hedi Slimane was, I think he was involved in the creation of Dior Homme. So that line of fragrances. So I think he really enjoys iris or orris. So I think that's why you'll see a lot of orris, iris, orris butter come up in a lot of their fragrances, and you experience it. This one's really, really delicious. It does lightly hint at Iris Malikan, as I said, but I prefer Iris Malikan a lot more than this, not only because the other fragrance has a lot more projection and a cloud. This does seem subdued, but as a smell, it smells really, really great. This one has a lot more of that mossy experience. Also, the galbanum comes in, that greenness. And I think for me, the galbanum in here might be a little stronger than the galbanum in Iris Malikan. There's also a kind of like a cologne-like smell, like a men's cologne-like background or backbone or something that I'm quite liking in this, in contrast to the other notes. So you're experiencing the vanillic touches, you're experiencing the orris, you're experiencing the patchouli and things like that, and the galbanum, but behind it all, there is something like a classic men's cologne-like smell, which is quite nice. The sad thing about this was I wanted it to be bigger. It's not a big fragrance. It's not a powerhouse kind of an experience. It's not those kind of fragrances that will go on you and you know, be on you forever and ever, like a lot of beast mode fragrances will be. But I think as a smell, it's really, really great. I still prefer Iris Malikan for that combo of the orris and galbanum, but this is definitely a solid fragrance. Nightclubbing. I like the name too. It really does you know, make sense to call this Nightclubbing. I think it could be perfect for going out in clubs, but very, very dressy and kind of classy looking kind of outfits and things like that. Because I find this to be a very, very dressy, stylish but dressy kind of smelling fragrance. So Nightclubbing at number 5. At number 4, and at number 4 and number 3 are tied together. And I think what I'm going to go with is at number 4, I am going to go with Eau de Californie for number 4. So Eau de Californie for number 4, in the end, is a very citrusy fragrance, but there is this Palo Santo note in this particular fragrance, and Palo Santo wood is a kind of a very religious wood, I believe, from the South America. And it doesn't come up too often in fragrances. It's here, but this particular fragrance smells like a combination of citruses with these notes, but it smells like there's vetiver in here, and it smells like a kind of a citrusy, fresh vetiver fragrance with light smoky touches and things like that. So Eau de Californie features notes of bergamot, white orris butter, Palo Santo, tree moss, patchouli. It's a great combination. It smells really, really great. I really do enjoy the notes in this particular fragrance, but once again, it's a little subdued, and I wanted a little more oomph with the fragrance. And this is a general issue with this collection. You'll notice that they don't scream, they don't shout. They're kind of in the background. You know, people have to get close to you to smell you, but they have some amazing, amazing smells. This smells really, really great. It smells unique in that Palo Santo has these kind of like light, creamy touches where it can kind of remind you a little bit of sandalwood, but then again, it also has these drier, more dusty kind of qualities for like, you know, wood shavings kind of experience. But then again, it reminds me of Vetiver as well, because Palo Santo has this smokiness. Vetiver sometimes adds smokiness or has smokiness as well. So when I wear it, I'm kind of tricked. My nose is tricked into thinking that I'm smelling Vetiver with lots of citruses and patchouli and oak moss and things like that, or tree moss according to them. But it's a great scent, but I'm putting it at number 4. It's Eau de Californie. So at number 3, on the other hand, I actually reversed these right now on camera because I thought to myself, I don't have these correct. Number 3, I shouldn't say 4 because the last one was 4. Number 3 is Cologne Francaise. So Cologne Francaise to me seems a little louder, but then again, this to me seems like it's once again a very, very fresh citrusy fragrance with a kind of a green note running throughout it again, just like Nightclubbing's Galbanum. This is figs. So you've got the fig tree, not the fruits, but the leaves and the tree itself running throughout it. Really, really great smelling fragrance. I really do think this one is great. It has a kind of a bitterness because you're getting that bitterness from that kind of like the leaves of the tree, from the fig tree, but it's neroli, fig tree, white orris butter, tree moss, and musk. So I think what I'm noticing is definitely a lot of the orris butter, but you're also noticing there's a lot of tree moss according to the notes. So it's, you know, it's in there. And again, this one has that kind of cologne-esque that I found in Nightclubbing, but whereas it was kind of in the background here, but in here it's more outside. It's like it's more of a presence, which I quite like. And Cologne Francaise, it says Cologne in the name, so there's that kind of like cologne-esque about this one that I quite like. It's very, very classy, it's very green, and it's also a little bitter, but lots of citrusiness, powderiness for sure. This is a staple for this house. You do experience the kind of white flowers of neroli, the citrusy presence of that particular flower here. Really delicious fragrance. So Cologne Francaise is at number 3. So at number 2, going to the fragrance Parade. This is actually, and the next one at number 1, you probably already know number 1 because I mentioned it at the beginning of the video. These 2 fragrances to me seem like the loudest. And when I'm saying the loudest, they're not necessarily like intensely overwhelming, beastly kind of projection and sillage and things like that. But in comparison to Nightclubbing especially, because I wanted that fragrance to be really strong, it's not. Parade seems to scream a little louder, even though here we have a full-on citrus experience. And this time we do have vetiver. Parade features notes of bergamot, neroli, vetiver, musk, and oak moss. There's that oak moss here. We do not have the orris butter come in this particular fragrance, and maybe it's because of the orris butter not being present here that makes the fragrance to scream a little louder. Is it true? Because the next fragrance doesn't feature orris butter either. Perhaps that kind of buttery quality of the orris or the iris tones down the the screamer qualities of certain notes and fragrances. But this smells really, really fresh. This to me is an overdose of citruses. It's musky, it's clean, it's neroli, it's white flowers, the citrus flowers. It's aromatic, it's woody in there as well. You've got the grassiness, the earthiness of vetiver in here, and I think the blend is really, really delicious. It smells really great in heat. It comes alive in heat, and I like that about it. And that's why it's at number 2. Again, it's a citrus fragrance. We're not breaking any new ground. I've smelled fragrances like this, but this smells really, really, really delicious. Parade at number 2. In fact, if you go back and watch my initial video on Celine fragrances I did on the fragrance Dior Paris, I mentioned in that video I was going to probably buy Parade next, and I think I bought Parade 3rd or 4th. Anyway, number 1 is Dior Paris, and I think it's the most unique smell out of the collection. I really like this because it's vanilla, hello vanilla, but the contrast in this particular fragrance is so unique with Laurel Blossom. Laurel Blossom has this very, very unique kind of a smell, and even though you're experiencing this vanilla, that you're going to think it's syrupy, it's powdery once again, but there's no mention of Orris, but I think it could be in there. It could be in there. But this smells really, really delicious, and I think they've done a great job with this particular fragrance, and features vanilla, laurel blossom, musk, bergamot, and coriander, and I like this coriander note. There's a very floral quality of the spice. If you're looking at the seeds, it smells really, really wonderful. I think it's a beautiful, bright, kind of a spicy smell that I've smelled at my mom's kitchen when I, go through her spices. And sometimes she toasts those spices on a pan, and it makes the whole kitchen fragrant. So it's here. It's in this particular fragrance, and the blend is just beautiful. So when I bought this fragrance at the New York City Celine boutique, I thought all the fragrances were going to be as good as this. And even though they are, they just seem a little subdued. And that's the disappointing part about these fragrances. But if you've been wanting to sample them, I would start with Dior Paris. I think, especially since that's my favorite of the bunch. And also if you like vanilla. But you've got this Laurel Blossom in here that's really, really something unique in fragrances that I haven't seen come up too frequently. And there's a spiciness about this Laurel Blossom. It's here. It's contrasted with the vanilla. But it's, as I said, it's a dry vanillic quality. Not necessarily syrupy, gooey kind of, does that make sense? It's sweet, it's aromatic, there's a freshness about it, but vanilla seems warm to me. So this one kind of seems like a contrast between warm and fresh, because everything else except the vanilla is more on the fresh side, but the vanilla warms it up. Either way, Dior Paris is number 1 in this collection so far. I'm missing 3 fragrances. I'm missing La Peau Nue. I'm missing Saint-Germain-des-Prés. Is that how you say it? And there's one more I'm forgetting the name of, but there is one bonus one I'm going to do today. Stay tuned until after the outro. But either way, that's my thoughts on these Celine fragrances. After sampling the Rimbaud, I'm feeling like it might be redundant if you already have those lavender vanillic fragrances. I'm kind of intrigued with that bread accord note, or the wheat accord note, I should say. So that's going to be interesting when I try this on and wear it and, experience it. But I'm pretty solid with this list. I feel this is perfect. And Rimbaud will not go on to the top 5. Eventually, I'll do a top 10 because now they have a whole 10 fragrances in the collection, but I'll still need to get the 3 missing ones. But let me know if you've sampled this collection of fragrances from Celine. Did you know that Celine is a fashion house or a designer? As I said, these are very exclusive fragrances, just like the Louis Vuitton fragrances, which is also in the same parent family conglomerate group. Their fragrances are all in the boutique. You can't go to a store to sample them. So it makes it for a challenge to sample these fragrances. But anyway, let me know your thoughts if you've sampled them. One last thing I forgot to mention. There is a standalone store just for the perfumes, I believe, in Paris. This was the info I had gotten when the first fragrances just launched. I don't know now 2 years or so later if that store still exists. I'm hoping it does because eventually I'm going to end up going to Paris, hopefully in the summertime, and I'd like to go visit. But also I called the boutique in Beverly Hills and they did tell me they're launching candles. So if these fragrances don't have a lot of projection, I wonder if the candles are. Either way, thanks so much for watching today's video. If you have any questions or comments, list below. Please like this video, please share it, follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Goodbye. So the bonus fragrance from Celine is Reptile. I didn't put it in the list of top 5 because I felt like I really love the smell, but this one to me I felt like it's the one that would be the biggest, like the most extreme. To me it's the most subtle, and it's a leather fragrance. Sad. Really, really sad. But this particular fragrance features notes of cedar, black pepper, tree moss, leather, and musk. So tree moss is a staple in this collection along with Orris butter. And this particular fragrance has powdery touches as well. It does. So I'm assuming in the background there is something like Orris butter featured in this particular fragrance. They're just not highlighting it. I'm getting powdery qualities. It's not necessarily an animalic fragrance experience, but you might experience the animalics very, very lightly. But it's definitely very, very peppery and woody, and that kind of like tree moss I think complements the leather, because I think I personally get like leathery touches from tree moss or oak moss experience. But then there's a particular fragrance is definitely very, very musky. So is it the best leather fragrance? I think it smells really, really great. I just wish it was a lot bigger. It is subtle. There's a major subtleness about this one. I wanted some oomph, you know. Leather fragrances need to be big and bad. This one isn't. So this might be appropriate for folks that don't like really loud leather fragrances, because the louder it gets, the more extreme and kind of the more animalic qualities come out potentially. So when you've got something a little subdued like this, it might be your kind of like gateway to a leather fragrance to experience. I think you can put it that way. But you know, I'm putting it at number 6. I just wish it was louder, and it's not. But as a smell, I think it smells great. Anyway, number 6, the bonus fragrance is Reptile. And that's pretty much it for today's video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.